Hey, good morning and welcome to Podcasts from the Pit. I am Casey.
I'm Eric, and
Angelo, Danabelle, how are you?
and Michael.
And we're trying to get Michael.
Yeah,
and he looks good anyway. So if that's going to be his static display.
Hopefully this will get worked out because this is going to be fun.
Yeah, this is going to be a learning experience for me. I'm guessing I am the youngest person on this stream.
69, baby. I'm not 69 years old, but 1969.
And then
finally, I'm not the oldest on the stream.
What's that, Case?
I said, finally, I am not the oldest on a stream.
Yep.
I'm
72.
72.
All right, I guess I'm the old man.
And I'm a young buck surrounded.
How old are you? I'll be 60 in a couple months.
Okay, so you got me.
Okay.
I feel like a kid.
There you go.
Too. I feel like I'm just a baby again.
And you know what? And that's what's great about the hobby is that it brings back all those childhood memories, and makes us kids again. And I think that as long as you think young, you stay young. It's when you start worrying about all the worries of the world, and you just open up the internet, and it's full of all the terrible things in the world, and that'll bring you down right quick and make you old. So this is kind of our escape. This is our escape. Our hobby is where we go back to that comfort zone, that place that we were able to enjoy and be imaginative and block out all of those terrible things. So I think that that's part of what and why we do this hobby is not just the camaraderie of all the other great people that are involved in it, but also to escape to a better place in time. Because if you look at the rest of the world, it's a scary place.
Yep.
And, I teach fifth grade, and I always try to tell my students, everyone needs an outlet. You need to have some type of stress relief. You need to have something that you do when the pressures of the world are on your shoulders. And I said, and kids today, the parents are putting pressures on them. Their teachers are putting pressures on them. Their coaches, their instructors, everyone is putting so much on their plate. Everyone needs to be the absolute best. Playing Little League is no longer playing Little League or playing soccer. It's now travel teams. It's now going all over. And the parents have so many obligations to make these kids better and better. And the kids are losing out on being kids. And they no longer have that opportunity to have that imaginative play because they're being bounced around in so many different places. And I feel bad for them because they don't have the opportunity to have that imaginative, creative play like we had, getting out in the dirt and playing, riding our bikes, climbing trees, falling, getting hurt. Now everything is, they're in their car traveling back and forth, and the only thing they have to be creative and imaginative is their internet access, is their tablet, is their phone. And it's a crying shame. And I think it's society that's doing that to these kids. And our goal and our job, I guess, and how I see it is to show kids today that you can still play, that you can still have opportunities to use your imagination. I have over 20, now I got about 30 figures in my classroom, 12-inch G.I. Joes, that I bring in and I allow the kids to take home. And the kids take these figures home, and I said, go play in the dirt, get them dirty, break them. I don't care. I don't want to break them on purpose, but take them home and play and take pictures and create stories. Don't just rely on someone else.
Take them to the creek, man. That creek becomes, that creek becomes a giant, big river. It's no longer a creek once that G.I. Joe, it's that creek. You know what I mean? That's what goes on there. Imagination just takes off.
So you need a
great one.
You need a slightly older, fatter, bald-headed, bearded kid in your class to take toys home.
Absolutely, the more the merrier. It is. And what happens is when I show the enthusiasm and excitement when I come into the classroom and I bring a new figure in, or I show them a new picture that I've taken, or a comic, that I've done, my excitement ignites their excitement, and to see that in them, and then they go to the GI Joe drawer. I have this big drawer with all the figures in it and a couple different knockoff Jeeps, and then they start wanting to play. And I'm like, this is what it is, and this is where it should be at. And then we have a nice nature trail in the back of the school with a nice little creek, and I take them out at least 5-6 times a year. And I said, bring the figures, bring them, go out there, and they're making little rafts, or they're using the little raft I have, and they're putting it right in the water. And I'm like, this is the way it's supposed to be. And I feel, I feel bad. I'm getting older, and I said, I'm not going to be in that class too much longer. I'm getting ready to be on the wayside out. I have many other things that I want to pursue and do, especially in regards to the hobby. And I just feel bad that these kids, excuse me, not that I'm the greatest thing under the sun, but they're going to miss having Mr. D there to bring in his toys and have them play. We're too bent on data and how we can increase their test scores and not who these kids are. And if you don't have that outlet that I mentioned earlier, if you don't have a way to deal with stress, that's how it comes back tenfold. And why it seems like we have so many of these issues today in schools, in society, is because people don't know how to deal with the stress that is being placed on them. And like I said, for me, for a lot of us, this is our stress relief. This is our way to decompress. This is the way for us to deal with a lot of things. And unfortunately, it doesn't seem like the younger generation has that opportunity.
Well, I think it's because they have too many opportunities. I didn't have internet as a kid. I'm glad.
Yeah.
I played. I used my imagination. To this day, I'd still rather, do something with my toys than just, I don't know. Internet's good, but it's also bad.
Yeah.
It allows me to do this every Saturday, which is fantastic. It allows
Much
me
of anything
to,
is not a good thing.
Right.
Right. Let's say hi to the chat real quick.
Okay.
We have Zach saying Mr. D. I think he's
that's one of my students. I guess I better behave.
All of us better.
Yorktown Joe, good morning. Beta Ray Bob. Yes,
Bob.
I'm having a great weekend. Hope you are too. Joe Hunter 73, what's up?
Hey, Joe Hunter.
Foot, what's up, Foot? And Zach is saying, yes, you are his teacher.
Zach, don't take up the whole chat.
Good morning, Gaz. Gaz is a legend.
Morning, Gaz.
Rex Ship 85, ahoy.
Ahoy, me matey. Arr.
Andy in Indy. Nice. Is that Indianapolis? I live close to Indianapolis. The legend himself, Ronnie Trickshot. Thanks for staying up late, buddy.
Hey, Ronnie. Or I should say, yeehaw.
Peter Malone. Oh, and here's Larry. What's up, Larry?
Oh, the true legend, Papa Bear.
Now, Peter wants to know if he needs his AARP card to get in this chat.
I'm the young buck on this one. This is going to be amazing.
Oh, here we go. Good morning, Zazel.
Hey,
or
Zazel.
Evening. I know it's late there. Everybody saying hi to everybody.
Yep.
Such a great chat we have every Saturday. Thankful for all of them. Oh my goodness,
I'm
it is
surprised
going.
guys early morning on Saturday. It's like the Saturday morning cartoons all over again.
That's kind of our gimmick.
Cartoons.
Michael, I got a question for you. Is that a W
Sure.
you got on?
WV. Yeah. I'm your neighbor.
What? Where are you at?
West
I
Virginia.
tell you.
Same here.
I figured you knew that. I'm in Barnesville, Huntington area.
I'll shoot far. I am in the Roane County area.
Roane? You're in Roane?
Yep. So you're
Wow.
getting the rain now that's coming my way.
Yeah, we're getting a little bit of rain. It's not real heavy yet.
Okay. Oh man, Casey, you're going to be struggling now. You got 2 mountaineers on your podcast here, buddy.
It's all right. I'll live. Normally, the first thing we do after we say hi to Chaz, we do a show and tell if we have anything new from this week.
You want to start it off? I guess
I can go first.
Well,
I'll go first.
Okay.
I got a new Horde Trooper for my troop building project.
How many you up to now?
5.
What's your goal?
I got probably 10. I got the Beastman from the Lords of Power.
Nice.
And the best, I got this vintage tongue lasher last night at Lost and Found Toys. Still works.
Okay. Yeah, I remember him.
And last but not least, I got my Panther in the mail yesterday.
Wow. Nice.
He's not flocked, though. I wish he was flocked.
Yeah. Well, I know a guy that could probably do that for you. He's on this podcast.
Who makes those?
Right here.
Who makes that new Panther?
Do what?
I'm sorry.
The only thing hard about flocking
Who
those.
makes that Panther?
Panther is awesome.
Who makes the Panther?
Mattel Creations. It's for the new Eternia.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
They can't stop making those, can they?
And I'm glad. I'm so into Motu that it's pathetic. I had to do a special show just so I wouldn't talk about it so much on here.
Hey, Crash.
Morning, Crash. Yes, Bob. I do have. I think I'm current on all the Super 7 O-rings. I have Ramar and Fatal Fluffy coming straight from Super 7. Which, if they bought them together, you got them for 20 a piece.
Wow.
And if you click first time buyer, they give you free shipping. So
it's pretty good. Yeah, trying to flock those articulated pieces are difficult due to the fact that once you try to move them, if you move a leg, it starts to rub and a lot of the flock starts to come off. I know I've tried a couple different things to flock. If it's static, if it doesn't have any movable parts, I flocked several different animals. The last one I did, which was very, very difficult, was Snake Eyes' timber. Yeah. And I actually took apart the whole entire wolf and ended up with 13 different pieces. And I had to flock each individual piece, from the head to the tail to the legs. And then I had to reassemble it. So that was probably my hardest, most difficult flocking attempt. And I have to be very careful moving it because any moving part that rubs against it, the flock's going to come off. So if it is a static and it's not going to move, then flocking it is a possibility. It's just that, it depends on what you want to do with it. Eric, what'd you get new?
Nothing. Absolutely
Valentine's.
nothing.
Did you get Valentine's from the kids?
Nope.
No kids. They didn't even give you Valentine's for helping clean up the building yesterday.
Nope.
Nah, that's not cool.
No, some of the kids, they're different. Now, the one school I'd worked at, man, they'd give me pictures and stuff, but this one, they're just kind of like, he's a janitor. We don't want to talk to him, but that's okay.
Now, you guys are one of the most important people in the building. My secretaries and the janitors, that's who take care of business. You got to make sure, if you want your room all nice and tidy and clean and things picked up, you got to know who to take care of.
Well, for me, I just want the kids to know that somebody cares about them, and that's my biggest thing. You know, I teach Sunday school, and my thing is I want people, whenever I go into that school, I want the kids to see me and not really see me, but see Jesus shining through me. So, but I pick on them. I tell them stupid jokes and like, you know, there's one U.S. monument that's always in a hurry. Mount Rushmore.
What is that?
Mount Rushmore. It's always in a hurry.
You ever been? You
No.
ever been to Mount Rushmore? Yeah, we a few years ago we took the family cross country, rented an RV, and we started over here on the East Coast. We started in New Jersey, picked up an RV, and we drove it all the way across country, all the way to California. And it was the most amazing trip ever to see all of this country, to see all the different terrain, all the foliage, to see all the different monuments and, you know, in the national parks. And Mount Rushmore was absolutely incredible. And one of the things, now I get off on a tangent, when we went to Mount Rushmore, there was a lot of broken stone at the base of Mount Rushmore. And I got schooled on that because I had no idea. They actually had to blast off the face of the mountain at one point because Thomas Jefferson's head was bigger than George Washington. And they didn't like the fact that Jefferson was more in the forefront. So they actually blasted that part off. And that was what was down at the bottom of the Mount Rushmore monument as they had to build back up George. So I thought that was fascinating.
So I guess we can jump on in here. We're 17 minutes in. Yeah. I'm needing an education in adventure team, man.
All right. So, Michael, I know you're going to have a hard time with, it seems some of the volume is not working the best for you, but please jump in as much as you possibly can with the adventure team. I know your Facebook page is mainly adventure team.
Thanks for stopping by, Lilith.
Yeah, Lilith. So, what year did adventure team start in?
70, wasn't it? 69, 70, Adventures of.
Okay.
This book, if you don't have this book, and I'm sorry it's backward. I didn't flip my screen for the mirror image.
It's fine
book,
for me.
This book, Daryl DePriest, is like the Bible of 64 to 70s Joes, and it is a must-have if you want to have information in regards to, like I said, the beginning of Joe throughout almost up until the 90s. And in this one, it has the pictures are absolutely beautiful, and it goes through some history of G.I. Joe, obviously. And there's another one too Michael has right there. This one has G.I. Joe Adventure Team beginning in the 71. So for my understanding, war became bad when G.I. Joe in 64 came out. Soldiers of the World, you know, there was all the four branches of the military, and then it got into the foreign soldiers of the world, and then in the early 70s when Vietnam and all the protesting, and then war became bad. There was a falling out of the amount of money you were able to make from your war toys. So the adventure team kind of emerged and was born. And being born in 69, I kind of missed out on the heyday of obviously the painted head figures. But when the adventure team came out, I kind of fell in love with that idea of, you know, save the white tiger and you know, search for the pygmy gorilla and all those opportunities to engage in a story. It seemed like when it was more based on military, there was only so many bad guys. There was a good guy and there was a bad guy. There's a good guy and a bad guy. And there wasn't a lot of your own creativity and imagination that went into what you did with those figures. And I'm sure people will argue that and say there absolutely was. And I know there was. We buried stuff in the sand and we had giant battles and everything else. And some kids got their BB guns out and shot them up and got their M80s and blew them up. And that's how I got my first figures, because my cousins blew them all up and I put them back together. So when the adventure team came out, when they came out with these fuzzy hair guys and they had this cool shoulder holster and it had a story. It had a story to go and like, okay, we're going to go find a stolen idol. And then with that, sorry, I'm going to digress and go back to, so when Peter Pan Book and Records, I don't know if you're familiar with the Peter Pan Book and Records, these are phenomenal. And these were the best storytelling of their day. And it had a little note from Joe in the back talking about these comics. And they were just that. It came with a 45 record that you put on your old record player. And then it had this wonderful comic book inside that told a story about the adventures of G.I. Joe.
Man,
and this
cool.
one was all about the search for the stolen idol, which was a set, which was an adventure team set for G.I. Joe. So you could recreate this storyline with your figures and do the same thing with the Mummy's Tomb. And then Spy Island, they had all these awesome opportunities for kids that might have not had the imagination that could follow that storyline with G.I. Joe. And I think that was a huge selling point for the adventure team to have these opportunities to kind of like save these animals or search for these things. And that's what I fell in love with. And I just love those storylines. And when I started getting these Peter Pan books as an adult, I wanted to do my own and give back kind of the same thing, because as a kid, your imagination goes to a certain point. And I remember like going to Cape Cod and bringing all my G.I. Joes and saying, okay, what am I going to do with them? And then they just kind of sat there. They sat there in the sand and I didn't do enough with them. Those stories helped me build that creativity and build that imagination. So when I started coming up with my own, I found a gorilla one day at AC Moore. And it was this beautiful silverback gorilla. And I said, oh, that's cool. That would be great for an adventure team. So I bought this gorilla, and then I said I had to do something with the gorilla. Well, I then went to our local, it's called Ocean State Job Lot. And Ocean State Job Lot has everything under the sun. And they had these plant stakes that were 4-foot bamboo plant stakes. And I bought bags upon bags of these 4-foot plant stakes that were a very, very small diameter. And I cut them into 4-inch lengths. I made a 15-foot bridge with these tiny little bamboo stakes. It's currently above my head, stretching across the whole entire ceiling, that I built, and I put it over a little creek in my backyard. And I put the gorilla on it. And then I created this little G.I. Joe comic, in the Gorilla Encounter, that Joe's going to encounter this silverback gorilla going over that. And I did this based on the Peter Pan Book and Records style. And I tried to use the same type of dialogue and the same type of things that happened in the story. And this was just a quick little 7-page comic book. And people started being like, wow, that's great. And I got myself so excited. I'm over 21 issues of a continuing series of this. And now they're much larger. I got a better camera. And now they're, 11 and a half, 8.5 by 11 pages. And this is a 5-part series that has all I don't know if you can see that boat. That was a Decimo PBR boat that I made into an Amazon riverboat. It is 2.5 feet long, and I decked it all out. I went down to a local or SPAC. It's called SPAC, Saratoga State Park. I put that thing right in the water, got in there with my chest waders on, with my camera stuffed in the pocket, and took pictures while people were like, what in the world is this dude doing? And I didn't care. And I had a blast. I take the pictures, like I said, all over. And I created my own comics as the continuing adventures of G.I. Joe. And I now do that for every holiday, Christmas, Halloween, Thanksgiving, Easter's around the corner, and I have another trade paperback for that. I bring those to school. And Eric, you were saying comics are the way we learned how to read as kids. And picking up a comic book, it is reading. And then creating a comic is writing. So those were ways to bring in that educational piece, the academics, into a love of the hobby. I know I'm talking 100 miles an hour. Another thing that was one of my favorites if some of you are familiar with, is the Viewmaster viewers.
I had, whenever I was a kid, my brother had
I'm
an
just
Adventure
reaching
Team
for the stuff you're
Viewmaster.
talking about.
Do what? Whenever I
I'm
was a
reaching
kid,
for some of this stuff he's talking about.
okay. Whenever I was a
missed it.
kid, he's going to grab some stuff.
Okay,
Whenever
good.
I was a kid, my brother had a few of the Viewmaster slides for Adventure Team, and I remember looking at it, and one was like G.I. Joe jumping out of a helicopter into water, and I'm like, "This is so cool!" And then whenever A Real American Hero came out, I was like, "Well, I've got my Adventure Team now."
Yeah.
So, but I know it's not the same thing. You was talking about sets. What all kind of sets did they have? Just
Well, each one of the sets. Well, the figures, the individual figures in their coffin boxes are here behind me. These are the reproduction ones that came out in Walmart, and
Okay.
I wish I just bought every single one on the shelf. But this was, I was a young dad. I have 2 grown boys now, but this was like I didn't really have enough money to go just blow on buying the everything on the shelf. So I bought to make sure I had a full complete set. But those came out, I think it was 2003. Correct me, I'm sure there's guys out there that know exactly when the inception of the Walmart figures were. And they were $10 a pop, I think, $10 a pop piece. And I even got a couple that have a $5 sticker on it because they started blowing them out. And I'm just like, man, I just wish I bought all of them because they were so awesome. And some of the vintage guys, the originals are going to be not too happy. They didn't look the same. They didn't have the same feel. They were a little bit more brittle. But boy, did it bring back such a memory of having those figures. And I said, and I've been on the Paul Knapp show. If you guys know Paul Knapp, he's a great guy and he does the Man Cave show. I never had a brand new G.I. Joe Adventure Team figure in the coffin box. I said, there was a store in Schenectady called Two Guys, and they had 3 figures on the shelf. And I was there and I saw them and I wanted them so badly, but that was 1978 and it was past the year of the Adventure Team. We were going to Italy. My parents bought all 3 figures for 3 of my male cousins. I didn't get one of them. By the time we were there for an hour, none of them had clothes on anymore. And they all had been thrown off the balcony of the top floor of my cousin's apartment. And I was devastated. And after that, I think I tweaked out because I've been collecting ever since. And I have like both box sets and I have, loose. I'd love to have them out running around, playing in my room, playing outside. But I do have to still have them that are intact. Some of the sets, and I'm going to talk, Michael, over you. They started coming back out again. And I'm going to have to bust out my glasses, guys, because after the Adventure Team, the original Adventure Team of like the Search for the Stolen Idol, that was a set, and one came with, and then the Mummy's Tomb, all these different sets. Then they started coming back out, and man, can I see the date on this? 1998. So this is, if you can see it, Challenge of the Hawk River. So they started coming out again with some G.I. Joe Adventure Team with a more modern-esque body. The body wasn't as great, but it was a little bit more articulated that you can use. The hands were like ham hands. There were these big, giant hands on them. But it came up with a story, and it had a little comic on the back. And again, it wasn't the Peter Pan book and record comic book, but it was a way to show your story. Then this one, then you're trying to get some of the ladies involved. This one has a female character, not like the nurse. The nurse didn't do anything anyway. And now she's like $6,000. You can't even touch her. You might as well put her up on the shelf and leave her there. This alligator is awesome. It's huge. It's rubbery. It makes for another great story. So these are ones that came out later. This is one of my favorite ones with the Mummy's Tomb. It was a recreation of the Mummy's Tomb one. And they always made the mummy, the sarcophagus and the mummy smaller. I don't know if it's supposed to be a pygmy or a child, but it was always a smaller mummy. The original set had a small mummy as well. Now I have a couple of sarcophagus, which are full size, where you can actually put a Joe in it, so it makes it look more realistic. This one, sorry guys, standing up. Save the White Tiger, based on the original White Tiger set that came with this awesome tent. Again, modernized version for the kids, and then a little comic to go along with it, so the kids can reenact the story. If you don't have your imagination, it kind of helps you with that imagination. So those were sets that came back out again based on a lot of the original G.I. Joe Adventure Team stuff.
Yeah.
Michael, what do you got, boss?
What was that? Question? I missed it.
Oh, he was asking if you were going to show something off.
Yeah.
If I was
real quick, I want to say hi to Same Time Toys.
Hey, same time.
And my friend Jason, how are you? I'm sorry, go ahead.
So whenever you're looking, like me going to a convention or whatever, and I see somebody say, hey, I got 12-inch Joes here, vintage Joes. What do you look for to make sure it is, other than the date on the butt?
Yeah.
Just to make sure it's an actual vintage, like Adventure Team Joe, or even back in the 60s.
Well, there's going to be several different things, and there's a lot of people who are experts out in the field that I'm not. A lot, especially with the original Adventure Team figures. One, you're going to feel just the feel of the body. You're going to feel how light the plastic is. When you lift it up, you're going to actually feel the hollowness and the lightness of these figures. The reproduction figures are heavier and they're meatier and thicker. Another thing on the joints where the rivets are holding the joints together, they're metal, they're not plastic. So you have to take a look at those types of things. Again, when you said with the butt, on the butt of the repro, it's going to say repro. There's going to be 2 different stamps on it. The original will only have one.
One best place to do a
trademark or DTR or whatever. There's a lot of different things you can take a look at. That's why this book, D. Simone's book that I showed you a moment ago, inside it, they actually have the stamps on the butts, the different types of stamps that were created. And, when you get in the 60s, one of the very, very rare ones actually had like a brand on his back. So there's so many different ways to tell whether or not something was a true original. The reproductions are great, but just from the feel, if you were able to pick up an original vintage Adventure Team figure and you held it up next to a reproduction, you can tell immediately the difference. And one of the main differences is going to be the head sculpt. The head sculpt is going to look different as well. The flocking is going to look different. And it's just, I guess it's just, you have to be around it, I guess, enough in order to really tell right away.
Compare. It's hard to describe. Figure is a figure. You know what I mean? You go into detail. It's the best to have them in your hands and compare them. The old ones, you obviously see that an old one, a new one, it's heavier, like you said. The plastic's a little different. You just have to have somebody that show you and show you what to look for. There's a lot of little details, really.
Yep.
But Angelo was right.
Playability is my thing. Unless you're going to be, if you want to be a collector, and you want to put them on the shelf and you want to display them and you want, and you're going to be a purist or you want to have a true original figure. It's different when you're looking for figures. When I'm looking for figures, I'm not necessarily, unless I could get a really good deal on a vintage piece, I'm looking for playability. I'm looking for originality. I'm looking for something that's going to help me create more with my comic. And a lot of times what I'll do is, this is a super articulated G.I. Joe. Now, this figure is with a reproduction head that I reflocked, and then it's got this awesome jacket. It's got jeans, and I kind of modernized them. And what in regards to super articulated, it means it has extra joints in the knee, so he can bend much better than the original Joe's in regards to how he can hold a weapon or how he can move. So you find different outfits from different companies, and then you can utilize them on your adventure team, new Joe's, and you can have all kinds of stories built from the new outfits and whatnot. So that's another thing. So you can see another one. This one is this is actually a vintage head that I reflocked and I just put in another outfit. And I just think that it just keeps them alive. It keeps them going. This is a repro head and a reproduction body. It was one of the super articulated bodies. These are all, like I said, these are all ones for playability and not necessarily just to stick on my shelf somewhere and not enjoy. So I guess it depends on where you are and what you really want from collecting G.I. Joe or from what you want with figures.
See, you showing those off, that is getting my brain just turning, because the only ones I've ever seen were the ones in the camo, like the Land Adventure, the Water Adventure, the Pilot. And so now I'm thinking, what's the possibilities? Where all could you go with this?
Endless.
And like the one you showed off with the jacket and the jeans and stuff, that looked really good.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, once you get into customizing these pieces, with the addiction starts right there. I mean,
and so,
and then because I don't sleep very well. My mind goes 90 miles an hour, so I started coming up with different sets. Everyone comes up with their own type of box sets and whatnot. So I started coming up with my own box sets for fun. So this one I called it Game Night. And this one has a G.I. Joe with a vintage Barbie Ken's pajama set with all kinds of stuff. It even has a working video game system. So you can actually play asteroids with it. And there goes some of my stuff. But it has a nice rug. You can see the TV near my pinky chair. It's got a chess set. And it allows you to do the same type of thing as the Peter Pan book and records and as the original adventure team sets, to come up with a story that goes along with the set. So everything's in here that you would need. And now you don't need to necessarily have the imagination. You can create the imagination based on what's here. So I've done probably a dozen different sets the same way, with a figure, with a certain outfit, and then an animal. I had one with a beautiful tent that almost like a burlap bag tent with a hammock and a tiger, one with a lion, another one, and it was bringing back what I loved about the adventure team and trying to modernize it a little bit with a figure that someone could actually play with and not be worried about that it was a vintage figure and they didn't want to get it dirty or whatnot. Yeah. So Cotswold Collectible has all those awesome reproduction figures, and they work so well to put in there, and they look exactly the same. And there's some really great guys out there that are flocking heads. I think Ray Cairo is the one who does all the flocking for Cotswold. If I'm correct, Stacy Armstrong does a phenomenal job flocking everything under the sun. There's guys out there, Michael Bolinski, who does a lot of fixing, especially of like the Talking Joes. It's just, there's so many people out there that are willing to bring this back to life for people to see.
Now, you mentioned the Talking Joes. Was that part of the adventure team?
The talking commander. He looked almost exactly the same as the Land Adventure, except he was in all green, and they had different green outfit. It either had two pockets, one pocket. so everything there was a little bit of difference in each one. So if you were going to be, taking a look again, if you look at the priest's book, you can see some of the variations in the different jackets and whatnot. But he was the commander, and he had a muscle body. It was kind of a muscle body. And I was never a fan of the muscle body because I never thought it could pose as well. And because he was a little bulky and muscular, he couldn't bend. He bent his arms even less than the original figure. So that was hard, but it was so cool that you pulled on this, and I have them up there. I should have brought it down. You pulled on that tag. He had a nice big adventure team tag, and you would pull on the tag, and based on where you pulled it, the string had different color combinations. So based on how far out you pulled the string, it had like 7 different sayings, different phrases. I have oh my gosh. A tough assignment for you, I think, is like the most popular one if you pulled it all out. I have a tough assignment. So each one said something, and it was so awesome to have this talking G.I. Joe. And I always thought that once they were done, you never get it fixed. But there's guys, like I said, Mike Marinsky's out there. He's fixing these up and making them brand new again. So it is awesome. Michael probably has one there that's going to show us.
Here's the figure he's talking about.
I heard the string.
You're lagging a little bit.
Yeah. No good, huh?
No, I didn't.
That stinks. I feel bad. Michael has such a wealth of knowledge, and he has such an awesome site. And I feel privileged to be able to share some of my photos and such on his Facebook page.
Whenever I get on, go ahead, Casey. Oh,
yeah,
we lost him.
Well, we'll wait for him to come back, but I have a little video that Eric put together from pictures that both of you sent. So when he comes back, I'll play it.
Okay.
That way people can see some of the stuff you're talking about. Probably been on his website.
Yeah. So I'm gonna keep talking if you don't mind. So after all of this 12-inch adventure team excitement, G.I. Joe Real American Hero came out with the classified line a few years back. And I was dead set against going anywhere near it. I said, I have, so many of the 3 3/4 inch, I can't get into another line. But I did. And it was going down a rabbit hole, all right. And it was another obsession. So I started purchasing them, and I started to find people on Etsy who would make 3D printed reproduction heads to fit the 1/12 scale bodies. And I got myself so excited. I said, wow, this could be a whole nother dimension to an adventure team for the new generation of kids who don't know the 12-inch Joes, but are familiar with the Marvel Legends figures, who are familiar with Four Horsemen, who are familiar with all those other, 6-inch figures. And I said, well, why don't we try to get them into the adventure team again? I've been bashed on so many of the 1/12 sites that, they're making fun of the fuzzy hair. One dude called it pubes. Sorry, Zach, that's out there. I mean, I'm like, come on, you guys are just, they're just being jerks. So I'm like, it's because they were too young and never knew what the adventure team was. Yeah. So this is one of my latest acquisitions. It is a radio control 1/10 scale Jeep. It is 4-wheel drive, and each one of the figures is a classified figure that I have flocked. And I painted, and you can see the African-American one in the front, painted his head, flocked the hair with a 1 millimeter flock. You can see the commander that I have there is in Hawk's body. I gave him a bald head. And the dude that's in the back is a painted head that I made with a beard as well. So you can bring back the adventure team for any generation and the new generation, but people have to be willing to accept it. And that seems to be the sticking point. Is there's not, if you're a truist and a purist, there's not wiggle room to be accepting of it. And I think that's a crying shame. I have Sigma 6 GI Joes when I try to get my kids interested in that. I have every single comic that was ever created from GI Joe, even the ones in the 50s. Everything that was GI Joe, I have at least some piece or part of it. And it's not that I'm just one specific scale. It is that it's GI Joe. It was something that was very personal to me and something that brings back my childhood. So why not accept others, even if they have a different viewpoint? That's my soapbox. Zachary, appreciate that, I'm sure, from school days.
Hey, I just want to respond to Jason real quick. No, I'm not. I can't make it to that show because Sundays are the day I spend with my granddaughter. So nothing supersedes that. It'd be fun to go, but you know. And Ronnie's got a question. How do you flock? What's involved? And is it easy?
Okay. When I had my first original Adventure Team figures and the fuzzy hair started to come off, that's when I would break out my dad's old jackknife and try to shave it off and give him just a mustache and you would end up cutting your fingers and cutting the plastic and you butchered them. And I've encountered a lot of those butchered heads over the last few years. So I had to do a little research and talk to those few people. And if you go on YouTube, you'll be able to find it. I took a mosquito zapper, those mosquito zappers that you'll find in a store for like $4 or $5. And I disassembled the mosquito zapper. When you take apart the screen part of the mosquito zapper, you're going to have a couple wires inside of it. You're going to have positive and negative wires. You can actually hook those positive and negative wires up in order to electrify. And I use a peanut butter jar with a little piece of the screen on the top. The peanut butter jar becomes the receptacle to hold all the flock nylon fibers that you can get from Flock It here in the States. If you go in the UK, there's another place that will send them through FedEx, and you put these little nylon fibers from 1 millimeter up to like 4 millimeter will work, and you put them in this with the screen on the top. You electrify it. You put the metal piece up inside Joe's head, and add some Gorilla Glue is what I like to use. Gorilla Glue Clear, because if I ever make a mistake, I can redo it. And it electrifies the head, and the hairs stand up. I've done a couple hundred, maybe more than that, of the 1/6 scale, and then I started into the 1/12 scale, which those little tiny heads, and I've even done 3 3/4 inch, which are the most taxing and challenging because I have to wear a full magnification headset. That's one way to do it with the mosquito zapper. The other one is you go on Amazon and you look up a negative ion generator. Yeah, it sounds like we're talking Star Wars here. Negative ion generator, and you create your own little flock box. You get like a little metal rod. Yeah, it is painful. The first time I did this, man, my wife would hear me screaming from downstairs because I would shock myself and throw the flock device across the room because I shocked myself so many times. It's probably why I talk so fast. So then you can create a flock box where you have a metal rod that goes through the middle of the box, and you do the same thing. You hook up the different wires to the back. You have to have a ground to the metal tray, and you turn on the negative ion generator, and it excites all the flock fibers, and they're flying in the air. You hold the head over it, and it adheres to it. It's an amazing thing to see happen. Brings back life to those figures that were once gone or tossed aside. Yep, you can flock, and I've done and you mix colors, and that's kind of my favorite because a lot of guys want a lot of the original and make it look the same. You can never be exactly the same. I mean, when they mixed this stuff together, the dudes were down there and they had these big giant machines and they were just throwing stuff together. You could come close. I've come pretty darn close with my flocking. A lot of them are really close. This one is as close as I'm going to get to the Adventure Team Land Adventure colors. And I mean, these are flocks. These are pretty doggone close to the colors that were original. But I like to have my own custom colors. This Sea Adventure, it's not nearly the same orange ginger color, but that's my color. I created that color. I made that color, and I think it makes it more unique and original to me. And I love to do the salt and pepper with the gray, or you do a white or a combination. And it, like I said, it brings a whole new level, a whole new area to the GI Joes, because now you can have figures that aren't just with brown hair and are just not with blonde hair. You have all of these different characters that you can now incorporate because you're using different color of flocking.
Yeah, Yorktown and knowing is half the battle.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what I want to do right
just
now is I want to show that video. We're just going to let it play through. That way people can see, some of the stuff that's been on there. Then we can get back to the conversation.
These are some.
And feel free to
Michael's-
talk over it. Yeah.
Yeah. These are some of the pictures Michael sent me. I like that helicopter, and that's really cool.
Yeah.
Dangerous climb.
Yeah, there's
That's
my little
one.
guy.
Yep.
Yep, these are the small 1/12 scale. Yeah, that was, I repainted that chest. That was tough. That was a bazooka.
Those look great.
Thanks. So I figured I focused mostly on the pictures were all the 1/12 because I figured I wanted to show all the 12-inch figures here live, so for you to see. So that was why most of the pictures were just of the 1/12 scale. But the headquarter, I saw a nice headquarter shot that Michael had there. That was one of the great things too in regards to the adventure team. Not just the sets, but the vehicles. The adventure team vehicle, the ATV, was the mainstay, 6-wheeler, and it was everyone wanted that in the desert and on the beach and burying the mummy. That was a favorite. And then the MSV, the mobile support vehicle that had a moving satellite dish on the top and a real working spotlight on the top. Such awesome ingenuity and pieces that the adventure team had to go out and have these missions. It was just fantastic. And then they came out with this portable vinyl headquarters, and it was so cool because it was like a suitcase and it had a little clasp on it, and it would fold up into thirds. You could fold it right up, and it had a handle on the top. You can carry it around with you where you want it to go, and you can put all your gear inside. You can put your figures inside, and then
there's a little kid that was.
What I miss?
Yeah. I love that thing.
Yeah. Talking
the
about
briefcase
the
thing?
headquarters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get a word or two in there. I'm trying to assist with what he's saying.
I can't hear him. I'm sorry.
What he's saying because he talks about the headquarters. He talks about the headquarters. I'd like to point out how huge it was. As a kid, it wasn't that little thing like this toy today. This thing was huge. A big giant suitcase,
And I was telling Eric, I have 5 of them. I currently have 5 of the headquarters. Underneath my table to my left, I have 3 of them that are like a horseshoe, so that one ends up leading into another one. Then I have one that I take with me outside when I do photo shoots outside. And and the top part you could actually lift up, and then you can have, there was a figure, that was my favorite part. There was a slide with a chair that you could slide the chair up and lock it in. And then there was a control mechanism to work a spotlight on the top. And I'm like, how neat and how awesome. And everything was D batteries back in the day. You remember those big giant D batteries that were in the flashlight? So everything used those big giant D batteries. And it was just a cool thing because when it opened up, you had a control center, and there was a little where you had headset, you could plug into different images. So you're talking to Joe doing his different adventures. There was the tower that went up with the spotlight. Then there was a room where you got ready, and it had all these plastic shelving units where you can keep all of your supplies that you needed for your next adventure, and coat hooks. And it was just such an awesome piece, all-inclusive adventure. And that's what the adventure team was. Everything they did was all-inclusive adventure. And it was the best of times.
I have a
Actually,
question.
Go for it.
Does either one of you go to Kentuckiana or Winterfest? I know it's a drive.
I went to Joe Lanta a couple years ago. Buddy Finithy, good buddy of mine, hooked me up to go down to Joe Lanta, and I went, and I was Paul Knapp, and we did kind of a traveling Paul Knapp show, and I went around and interviewed some of the people there. I would love to get to Kentuckiana. I would love to get to Joe Fest. I would love to get to the drive is a pain. And how I see it is you're gonna drop $1,000 no matter where you go. You're gonna with either driving with gas prices there and back from here, because no matter it's gonna be 12 hours there, 12 hours back, wherever I go. So gas prices, plane ticket, hotel room, and then you're going to want to buy something. So I said, if I was going to do it, I would want to have like a table at least. Then I could compensate for some of the funds that I spend. But then how do you get it there? I mean, do you drive down with a trailer? So there's always this catch-22. I just wish there was something a little closer. I wish that the money was easy enough where I could just take off and go and do those things. Maybe later in life I can. But yeah, those are goals that I would love to have, to see the people instead of just behind the screen, instead of just behind the camera, to see the people in the flesh and talk to them like we are right now. So my answer, that was my long answer. The short answer is no.
I just bring it up because half the show is 12-inch.
Yeah.
Other half is all the other scales. And I go through the 12-inch every time. I'm like, I'm going to buy my first one. I'm going to buy my first one, but I'm lost. I don't really know, what I'm looking for. It's also cool. Do I go for the, World War II stuff, the Vietnam stuff, or, Adventure Team's probably the route I will go.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's overwhelming for a person who doesn't have any.
Right.
I'm also looking at Super Joe though, because that looks pretty cool.
Yeah.
And reasonably priced.
The Super Joe is the only one that I don't have. So I think that what happened was in the late 70s, once the Adventure Team fizzled out, and they went into Super Joe, I lost that interest. It wasn't the 12-inch figure anymore, and that's what I was mainly into. So I never owned the Super Joe. And one of the last things I had as part of G.I. Joe was Bullet Man. And I tell the story, Paul Knapp and the guys who are rolling their eyes, because I tell a story about Bullet Man's revenge. And I tell it to my students at school that Bullet Man was supposed to be part of the G.I. Joe, but he never looked like a G.I. Joe to me. And he was wearing like this little leotard outfit with these big plastic rubbery boots. And he had a string that you could put across his back and fly him down like a zip line type of thing, like he was flying. Well, I tied him to the back of my bike and I flung him around the street, and I had too good of a rope that my old man had, and Bullet Man didn't give, the rope didn't give, I gave. I flew over the top of the handlebars and slid across the road on my face. So Bullet Man got his revenge. So to this day, I got rid of Bullet Man as soon as the first eBay came out, and he was gone. But the defenders of Bullet Man who are out there, they're probably right now like knocking me, because he was like the end of the Adventure Team, and then the Super Joe came out. But Casey, if you can get $30-$40 Adventure Team figure, I'd jump on it. I'd grab it, and just check, see what the limbs are like, if they're really loose. There's so many guys out there that can retighten, and there's so many you can buy the kits to retighten all the strings, and it's not very hard with all YouTube and all, like you said, technology is it can be an awesome thing and it can be a terrible thing, but you can find out how to restring and tighten everything up. So if you just want to have one to see what it's like, $30-$40, you should definitely be able to find one. check their flocking, and if it's got little imperfections, I'm sure they would knock it off. If you ever wanted a head reflocked, they come off very easily. I could very easily reflock it for you. It's not going to be exactly the same unless you want to keep it vintage. And then I would say just leave it and have it like that.
Joe Hunter, I'm not going to DFW. It's too close to Joe Fest, so
Yeah.
I can only do one show.
Yeah.
So I'll be doing that. And Andy in Indy, I will do that because I never miss a Kentuckiana or Winterfest. It's only like an hour from my house.
Yeah.
So
some of us have
two
to
shows
trek across the entire state of Kentucky to get to it.
And Zach has a question. Mr. D, tell him about G.I. Joe Elf.
Yep, I have every year during Christmas. Once December hits, there's a G.I. Joe elf on the shelf that shows up in the classroom and causes havoc. And he's in different places in the room each and every day for the kids to come in and see where he is. So he's usually dressed up in some like an elf outfit. It's usually getting one of the bottle sweaters where you can get from during the holiday. They have all those bottle sweaters. And even if you go Target, Michael's, where you can find those little sweaters to put on Joe. So we have an elf on the shelf, G.I. Joe, that likes to hang out in the classroom during December.
Nice. And Larry has a question. Ever reflocked a human head? Asking for a friend.
He's asking for me because the top of my head is shiny.
Before I even knew about flocking or anything like this, and I'm sure there's more than just crazy me. I actually used whiskers to glue on the top of Joe's head. Because I did, you especially if you're using an electric razor and you're taking out, you're like, wow, that looks like flocking.
Yeah.
So yeah, a little touched, but I'm sure there's more than me that just did that.
Yes, Ronnie, that would be cool.
Yeah.
I have one Motu figure that is flocked, and that is Moss Man. And he's like,
I've seen that one. That one looks, that's a nice job. That's probably that 1 millimeter or even 0.5 millimeter flock on there.
Yeah. And so now you've talked about flocking in the adventure team. For me, I'm really wanting to get into adventure team, but also like doing customs. So how hard is it to, well, you've touched on that, so I won't ask it. I was going to ask you, how hard is it to do like a 4-inch figurehead, like the flocking? But
I think extremely.
Yeah. The 4-inch figures are the absolute most difficult to flock. If I have to paint them, like if it's a reproduction head, of which I've done a couple dozen, the reproduction heads are so tiny, but you have to paint them too. It's not just like if they came with already the eyes already painted and they already came with the lip and the scar already painted. It's different to get the flock on there. It's not as difficult. But if you have to paint the head, the flesh tone, you have to put the little scar on there to try to get any white into the eyeball. And then the eyeball itself, that you have to have the tiniest little paintbrush, like a single hair, in order to, you know how small those heads are. I mean, the size pit. So that's the hardest part. Then putting the flock on it, when you use the glue that you're putting on top of the head, if you put an excess amount of glue, it's going to ruin it because you're either going to get too much flock or the glue is going to absorb the flock and you're going to get a wet look on it and it's not going to look right. So you have to put the minuscule amount of glue and coat it so carefully before you actually use the electricity on it. So that one, those are the hardest. The smaller they are, the harder they are to flock. The larger they are, it's easier, but you got to make sure the glue doesn't set up. I've done heads that are this big that were for the I have a 2-foot G.I. Joe-esque. I think it was called something Heroes, and they came out. There was a sailor, there was an army guy, I can't remember, but they were 2 feet tall. And someone asked me one time to flock the head, and I did, and I got so excited I had to go find one at a garage sale, and I flocked it too, and it's really cool.
So Zach's got a question for you.
Zach
is-
does. So it's Cobra Commander and Snake Eyes on the adventure team. No, those guys were part of the Real American Hero line, Zach. Those came out in the 80s. So those were they did also make them in 12-inch scale. They made them bigger. After the 80s, in the 80s when they were small 3 3/4 inch, then they made them into 12-inch figures later on. I think to try to encourage the kids who were into the 3 3/4 inch to buy into the 12-inch figures. So I have those hanging out up there too, in my room. So.
Yeah, the extent of my 12-inch collection is 2 of the Sideshow Collectibles figures. I've got a Snake Eyes and Timber, and I got a Flint.
Yeah, those are big cha-ching right there. That's big. Those are beautiful, beautiful figures. But yeah, there's some dollars.
I don't take them out of the cabinet. They stand static.
Right.
And then I have a couple of the 12-inch. They came out maybe early 2000s, late 90s. They're the Real American Hero 12-inch figures. They've got like cloth pants and like a molded shirt on them.
Okay, yep.
And I have a Snake Eyes and a Flint in that, but also have a machine gunner, a heavy machine gunner. It's in like a digital camo outfit that came out in like the early 2000s.
Yeah, they did a nice job with a lot of the military 12-inch figures during that time, and they had a great following. And it's just sad to see how it just seemed to have disappeared and gone by the wayside. I don't know if there was any rhyme nor reason to why that happened.
Do you think? My thought is they could make Adventure Team work in the classified. After seeing the stuff you've done, they could do out little sets. And I think somebody even put in the comments a while ago about how they could do it in like a retro or whatever type. But it would be so cool to see that, because they could do like an adventure or like a land adventure with a specific set, and then they could do accessory packs.
And I would buy that.
I would
and
buy
so
100%.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you right now, I put one out with a buddy of mine, and he probably brought one to Joe Fest, and he made a 3D printed yellow ATV, the 6-wheel vehicle, with the crane, with a sarcophagus, with a mummy, with the jewels, and then I flocked a Dusty with the brown, chocolate chip camo. I flocked it to look like a land adventurer, and we put together a set, and I made the box, and I had the image on the outside of the box. I went and took a picture at a little sand dune with the ATV, with the crane, taking the mummy out of the sand, and made a beautiful picture on the front of this box, and we sold it as a box set. So that wasn't, I think he said that no one was biting when he did the last time he brought this, but he a very talented gentleman that made the ATV. And if you go to my YouTube channel, I did a comic based exactly on the Peter Pan book and record of the Mummy's Tomb. And he sent me
very good.
And that's all based on that set. The original comic that came with the Mummy set had a 2-seater yellow ATV. Not too many people know about that, but it was never created by Hasbro. They only created a 1-seater. But in the comic, it shows a 2-seater. So I asked my friend if he could create a 3D printed 2-seater for me for the comic that I then did. And it's a 1/12 scale rendition of G.I. Joe Mummy's Tomb. If you haven't seen it, go to my YouTube. I love it. It's one of my favorite comics that I did using a slide presentation format and the Peter Pan book and record.
It's very good.
I do have the Lego sets, Zach. I have the Terrordrome, which is a pretty big set of Legos. I had to buy up those whenever they came out as well. So yeah, I have the Lego sets.
I have a Terrordrome.
You got that too? Yeah. Oh, is that the Lego one or the real one?
No, It's the original. It's the
Yeah,
real one.
I
Yeah.
sold mine. I sold mine 2 years ago because I was running out of space, and I'm like, I wasn't into the 3 3/4 inch anymore, and I feel bad to get rid of them. But I have Tupperware containers, 55-gallon drums. It seems like all full of 3 3/4 inch, and I don't have room. I need a museum to display from 12-inch, 3 3/4, Sigma 6, 1/12. I need, everyone needs more space, and I do too. And I just have to start downsizing.
That's mainly why I don't collect the the classified, is I don't have the room. And I can have 1,000 of these little 3 3/4 inch figures everywhere.
Yep.
Well, not everywhere. My wife get a little upset about that. I've tried that, but and then now I'm starting to think about the adventure team. I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna have they're I
Just
don't
put
have the
your bed out
room.
in the hallway,
Yeah,
Yeah.
You got to at
Just put
least
your bed
have
in the
one.
hallway. You'll be fine.
yeah.
You
What
got to
I'm
have
wanting-
one that can go hang out with you when you want to go on an adventure.
Yeah, what I'm wanting to do is have something from each section of GI Joe history.
Yep.
I want to have a 64. I want to have an adventure team, maybe even a Atomic Mike. I don't know how he fits in there. If he's a venture team or
Yeah, he was welcome to the adventure team, actually.
okay.
That was like your $1 Million Man. That was the GI Joe version of the Bionic Man.
But
Yeah.
I'd like to have something from each
Yeah.
section.
I've heard some stories about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was looking at my shelf, but I was looking at the wrong shelf. My GI Joes were over there, and I could fit a few adventure team for sure. And I would like to have some.
So the Kung Fu grip.
Yep.
I heard a story about that.
All right. What's the story?
Correct me if I'm wrong. That's Bob Reekin's hand.
Oh, I missed it.
I don't know. I don't know anything about the history of the Kung Fu grip.
Okay.
That's all I know is they would get hard and crusty and fall apart. Or if you ever try to use the trigger finger, they would snap off too. So it's very hard to get a Kung Fu grip today that's still pliable. You have to get repros from Cotswold. But I don't know the history of the Kung Fu grip.
Okay. Bob Reekin was a Palatoy
History.
designer. And he supposedly it was his hand that he drew it out and designed it off of his hand for the Kung Fu grip.
I've
got
not
to
heard
meet-
that.
I got to meet him in or Casey got to meet him too
Well,
in Joe Fest last year.
Amazing guy.
Yeah.
So nice.
Cool. Very
But-
cool. Yeah, there's so much history. And like I said, now as everyone's starting to get older and there's so many people who are unfortunately starting to pass away. I wonder if we'll ever really get the true story of what happened with GI Joe and why the 12-inch GI Joe really disappeared.
Okay.
It just seems like that there was.
It's an evolving market.
What's that?
An evolving market. It's just they try to stay with the market. Everything's getting smaller, the price of plastic or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened there either. Never had something to do with it.
Yeah, and because I'm with
But we'll
Mattel
go away
and
from the
Harley.
adventure team. I don't know how they did that.
And Andy and Indy corrected me. That was Action Man's hand. That was
Okay.
Bob Reekin's. I apologize. I was excited. I thought I had some useless knowledge here, and I was
It led us
wrong.
to the right answer. So
Yeah.
Hey, then knowledge is power. That's what I
Right,
say in
church.
school. Knowledge is power, baby.
Right church, wrong pew. But so
Awesome.
we're over an hour in,
Yep.
and y'all have anything to say before we jump off of here? Or?
Well, I appreciate the invite to come on and talk about a passion and a hobby, and I hope that this shed a little bit more light and information about Adventure Team. Again, I don't claim to be an authority figure. I just claim to be a true lover of the hobby and GI Joe. So I thank you. I thank you for the opportunity to do this, and I hope you guys. I wish you all the best of luck and continue a successful podcasts.
Thank you. Crash says, "Don't forget Sergeant Rock."
Yeah, he's got the set for the Sergeant Rock, and they look amazing.
They do, yeah. He's been sending out pictures, and they're awesome.
Yeah. So, how can we find you, men?
Say that again for me.
How can we find you all? Where are you located?
I'm in upstate New York. I live in upstate New York, and if you can,
I'm in West Virginia.
Build a diorama 2 at Gmail. You can contact me there. GI Joe AT. My students say GI Joe Eat because they don't know you can spell GI Joe with an E at the end. That is on YouTube and Instagram. Build a diorama 2 is my Instagram as well. So I have all three. I have all three things going on. I don't do enough on YouTube. I need to do a little bit more. But I'm currently, I have the week off of school. I have to do some flocking that I need to do for a couple friends, but I am going to be creating a Real American Hero classified photo comic this week.
And we can find you on Facebook. One of the Facebook groups I found you all on was the GI Joe Adventure Team headquarters Facebook group, and so I'm working on putting my headquarters together now, and going to try to complete it. I don't know how hard or how much of a nightmare this is going to be.
It's not going to be. It'll be fun, but I think it's going to be a process.
Yeah.
Then you need to get a nice shelf, set it up, get a couple figures to display with it, and you're good to go.
Okay.
You learn as you go.
Do what?
Over and out.
See ya.
See you later.
See you, Michael.
Bye, Michael.
Thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, those pictures are great, Crash.
Yeah.
But,
all right, guys.
What did you learn?
See you later.
Just one last thing. I want to thank both of you for being here today.
yeah.
Bye-bye.
Michael, we're definitely going to have to try it again when you have better
You're welcome. Thank you.
internet, because I just know, I mean, I've learned a lot already today. Could have learned twice as much.
Yeah.
And I'm really, I just know I'm going to take that dive. And if anybody knows me, I have rabbit hole issues. So
Me too.
if I buy one, I'll probably buy a bunch.
Yep. I'm right there with you. So
See you, Zach.
it's probably a good thing I didn't make it to Kentucky or Winterfest this year.
Well, if you guys ever need, have any questions that I can possibly answer, feel free to reach out. Eric, as you start getting that headquarters together, if you have any questions about it, there's a ton of pictures. There's a lot of great guys out there. 3D Joe's is a site that Ace Allgood has. So that has a lot of information, great pictures. So, you can find every piece and part that you need. And even if it's not original, I know there's a lot of guys that will 3D print that you maybe need to get it a little cheaper. If you don't mind it being not exactly original and vintage.
That's the way I roll. If it's not vintage, I can deal with that.
Yeah.
I just want to see it back in its glory.
Sure.
Perfect. Like I know I'm missing the searchlight.
Yeah.
And I have the control panel that has the big D batteries in it, but I think it's all jacked up. There's wires sticking out of the top of it. So I would probably need a new control panel and or a repro.
Yeah, it should be a pretty easy fix. Back then a couple of wires But yeah, see if you can find. I'll even look around and see if I know anybody who has any of those searchlights too.
All right, it's no big thing. No rush. At Joe Fest, that'll probably be my project.
What you're looking for. Good
stuff. I'm looking forward to complete it, and so. But we really appreciate you coming on today, and
no worries. Hope I didn't talk too much. It's kind of my thing.
Well, I learned a lot.
Good. All right, guys. Casey, take care.
Hey, you too. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye. If I can figure out how to get out.
Take care, everybody.